privileged. Which way? That way. I am privileged to be here with James. Now, I'd like to thank, first of all, Vanessa McDonald. You shared with us in SMC Insiders last week that there was a talk going on with Nancy and that we should all go and watch it. And she raved about you, James, saying how she had met you in the past and she thought you were incredible. And so I went and watched the broadcast and I was so excited, especially when it came to how James spoke so passionately about the importance of the consultation. And so I reached out. I do love that word, reach. I reached out.
I love
touching
it.
someone. Oh, anyway, I contacted James and said, any chance of coming on and talking about consultations with you all? And he said yes. And so I'm super excited to welcome James. So, James, if we kick off, as some people won't know you and what you do and where you're based, can you give us a little history of what you do, how you work, where you're based? I'd love to know more.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, first and foremost, and for your very generous words. It's my pleasure to chat with you about consultation and anywhere else that the conversation might go. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, so I'm quite far away, but this modern technology is amazing the way we can communicate.
Absolutely.
I have a small dermal therapies practice in Melbourne. So dermal therapies is a word that doesn't mean much overseas. It often doesn't mean much outside of Melbourne, but as dermal therapists, we are bachelor qualified dermal therapists. We've done a health science degree in skin. So our specialty is very much on skin health and affecting change as more than, say, a beauty therapist might be able to with their limited amount of knowledge and experience. And then also we're not as qualified or as skilled as a dermatologist, but we're sitting somewhere in between. We have access to lasers, high strength chemical peeling devices, other mechanical modalities that we get to use. It's not so regulated in Victoria or Australia, so it's fabulous from that perspective, but we make sure that we're still not cowboys from that respect. We're playing it very, very safe, but also very results orientated. And I am a dermal therapist. There's 3 other dermal therapists at my clinic. We have a manager, and in comparison to a lot of other businesses in Australia, we're really, really small, but we like being small. We can control every element of it, from the moment a client gets in touch to the follow-up conversations that we're having with them weeks or months out. Personally, I'm a bit of a control freak, so I get to mediate all of those elements, and it being small allows that to happen. But being small still means that we have a really, really successful business, both from a profitability point of view and also from a client satisfaction point of view, and they're both so important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I'm going to throw up something, because when I started sort of looking, James, and I went on and looked at your website, and I found the little piece you have on the initial consultation, and I'd love for you to share more about how it works. And I loved the wording. I'd like to know more about how and why you picked the wording. And having spoken and listened to you, I can see that it's very much written in your style of communication. But I just loved let's find out about your history. Let's find out about the journey you've been on. And if you want to go home and think about it, that's fine. So I'm just going to pop it up on, and it should appear. There we go. This technology is fabulous, isn't it? So tell us about how the initial consultation works and the sort of philosophy behind it.
Well, I think I've taken the consultation, I thought that everyone just did a consultation. And after I was with Nancy the other day, and because I'd made a comment, I'm sure that everyone listening is doing consults. And after she said, you'd be surprised. And I have to remember the moment when they come to us, or their look up at me and say, James, you're the first person that's actually looked at skin or touched my skin. And to me, that's just crazy. No offense to anyone that's not, because if a client is going to ask us to consider looking after their skin and wants to tell us exactly what they want us to look after, it's impossible for us to know exactly how we can help, or how, or if we can help, without physically inspecting the skin and touching the skin. That's one aspect of a consultation. Obviously, the other aspect of a consultation is the discussion element of it, the sharing of information. As I said, we do not, or as the website says, we do not start a treatment or a relationship with a client without the consultation, both from their perspective, so that they can know that with us and we're potentially the right people for them, both from an ability to do what they want, and also, you know, it's a relationship. So we need to they need to feel comfortable with us, and then from our perspective, we need to actually make sure that they're the right type of client for us, that we're going to feel comfortable looking after them from a long-term perspective, and also that we can actually do what they want us to do. There's no point us promising them that we can do A, B, C, and D when really we can only maybe do A and half of B. We want to avoid any sort of negative of being viewed negatively from a client's perspective down the track. So that initial consult is an opportunity for us to tell them, yes, I reckon we can have a really, really good impact on A, B. C, it will be better by someone in our wider community of practitioners, a dermatologist, it could be a naturopath, it could be a plastic surgeon, it could be a psychologist, there could be any number of people that is going to be in the client's best interest that they see them. And quite often they'll see them and then they'll revert back to us after they've had that dealt with. And you mentioned before with the consultation that the client can receive all of that information from us and then go home and consider that. There's been very few occasions where a client hasn't had a consultation, but it can happen, and I'm very, very, because it's best that a client realizes that for whatever reason, it could be that we're too far away from them. It could be that the treatment plan or home care is not sitting comfortably within their budget because they just didn't get on with it. Or it could be that they're going to try a few other places, and that's fine too. But it's best that they know that before any money is exchanged hand. And it's been a little bit of time for us, but we get far more wins than we do losses. So that's okay, but much rather that a client realize that they'd rather go elsewhere at that point than after actually having some treatment, spending some money, and then being even more underwhelmed at that point.
And I love that. And I was interested, you commented there that occasionally, and one of the questions that I wanted to ask was sort of in giving people and letting them know in advance that, you know, if you want to go away and have a think, that's absolutely fine. You find that tends to be quite a small number of people, or how do you find that works?
It is a small number of people, and I'll tell you why. Because what we actually offer our clients when they book in for their initial consultation is two options. You can book in for an initial complimentary consult. We will chat to them about their skin, their requirements, and how we can align, how our services may be aligned to that, and then they can actually get the ball rolling with the treatment. And the people want to do that. They've been referred to us, so they're already feeling comfortable with our service. They probably know the price point. They've seen a friend of theirs skin looking great, or they've heard an experience about how we've had to change their skin. So they're quite often in touch. They're ready to go. So the majority of people are having a treatment after the consult. But for a small amount of people who maybe it's their first time entering the world of dermal therapies, they're a bit apprehensive. They have been, burnt physically or emotionally from other clinics prior to. They will come and they'll have just their complimentary consult, but often than not, they'll return afterwards. I reckon in 10 years, I could count on two hands the amount of people that haven't returned after their complimentary consult.
And you know what? That doesn't surprise me at all, because you commented about how when you finished with Nancy and the conversations with her, sort of like, you'd be surprised how many people are not consulting with their clients. And to me, it should be that consultation service. It should be able to stand out on its own as that service. And in doing that, you build trust and you start that the relationship off on that right foot, where there's good communication and honesty and feedback, and that feeling for a client of like, wow, this really is an expert that I can trust. And I believe completely in doing that, the majority of people are going to follow the advice because they're not getting it from other places. And I shared with you on an email over the weekend that, it's a particular supplier did a research project and found that something like 94% of clients believed they never, in their entire life of going into a salon, never had a consultation, which to me just, that's mind-blowing. Because when you then ask team members, are you doing consultations? They're all there going, yeah, I am. And it just smacks that either the consultation is very weak, it's not well structured or thought through or planned or put into, steps and systems, which I'm going to go straight into as a question with that. With your consultation, do you have a very sort of set system procedure as to how we start, what we do? Do you analyze the skin? Are you looking at it? How does your structure work?
I think the thing about consultations is that you have to be prepared for them to be very dynamic, because every client, every skin that you sit down with for that complimentary consult is going to be different. So sometimes you want it to be structured, but you can't help that it's going in 100 different directions. But I still try to have, as much as possible, a framework where I'm touching on questions, really pivotal questions throughout the consultation process. I guess I've been doing it long enough now for me to know the exact information that I need to get the best out of a treatment plan or a home care plan. When I say treatment plan and home care plan, these are documents and takes home with them that outlines their morning and evening program, or what treatments I am expecting that they will need to get their skin to where they want it. And just a little side note with the treatment plan, I know some of my colleagues, or historically, I used to write down the treatments that I imagine, all the treatments they would need to get their skin to where it needed to be. And I realized along the way that how could I possibly know at an initial consult how a client's skin is going, what it's going to take to get a client skin to where they truly want it to be, because it can take months, it can take years, and the skin is going to change. I'm relying on it to change. So a treatment plan for me needs to be sort of incremental. I think that if a client's got concerns with A, B, and C, I'm going to write them a treatment plan that's going to just remedy A. It might start to touch on B, but once we've remedied A, we're going to review. We're going to do this consult again. We're going to check in. Where are we at? Are we happy? Are we sad? Are we frustrated? Are we? Is there some irritation going on that we must? There's so many things that can happen, and then we start again. Great. We've ticked that box. Now we're going to move on to the second thing, because sometimes once you get to B, a client doesn't care about it anymore.
Yes.
A and they're thrilled, but they might have C, D, and E that they're now concerned with. So the whole thing about these treatment and home care plans is, and I explain it, so much of the consultation is actually me telling them about what the journey is going to look like. But, with a client, trying to win them over possible. So rather than writing down a 6-month treatment plan, I'm going to knock out the congestion in 1 or 2 treatments, or it might take longer. Of course, we have to be prepared for it, not always to go our way. It can sometimes take longer, but again, you're touching on that stuff with your initial consult. You're telling them it's not an exact science. I'm going to be doing everything that I possibly can to be getting your skin where you want it, where we both want it to be. But sometimes we just need to take a different approach if it's not working. I think it's going to work this way, but quite often it doesn't. So you need to be prepared to be really adaptable. A treatment and a home care plan needs to be really adaptable too.
Absolutely.
I've just gone off in a tangent. What was your original question?
I can't even remember
Sorry.
stuff, but it did cover absolutely everything we were just talking about. I know. And I think you're absolutely right, because, you know, we can start with one issue and then we progress into something else. And I love the fact that, again, just as I sort of try and hammer home to teams, that it is a progression. And so even if you have that initial service consultation where you start to think about that longer term plan, that plan may need to adapt and it may need to change. And I think that's so important.
It ideally will, because the skin will change, and it will change for the better, and you might get there quicker. It might take longer. There's so many reasons. So it all needs to be very fluid. And this is where we as therapists have to be very, very adaptable. And we need to, you know, be really, really intuitive. A client might have booked in for skin needling. You're all ready to go. It's all set up. The client's ready to go. They've secured the downtime. But you look at the skin, you're like, no, it's not right.
Yeah.
They've overdone their skincare, or, you know, the skin has just responded to the previous treatment in a way that you didn't expect it to. So you need to be able to confidently say, this is not in your best interest today. We're going to do this because your skin is doing this. And your client, ideally, they should feel like it's in their best interest. They've certainly felt like everything to date's been in their best interest. So, you know, they're coming on that journey with you. I remember your question was, you know, is there sort of a framework to the consultation? I start off every consultation. We have a form that a client fills out, and ideally everybody else does too. The first question is, what are your concerns? What do you want to work on? And then the second one is asking a client, is this the first time you've had a conversation with a professional? And a lot of people say no, and that's great, because it's just a clean slate. They are all no. So you wow them, and they're on board. They're still being discerning. But you've got to do your job properly. But for so many people that come to this is not the first time that they've done this before. You know, they've been to the clinic X around the corner and Y around the corner, and sometimes they stayed for a while, and sometimes, you know, they didn't stay very long. But there'll be a reason why they're sitting. They were not happy with one element of the service, be it the results, be it the customer service, or they just want to try you or try something new. But I learned so much by asking them. Once I've ascertained whether or not they've spoken to a professional before, I ask them all about their prior experiences, because they'll tell you what's worked and what hasn't worked, and what elements of service they liked and what they didn't. And I view this as absolute gold, because I'm like, great, I'll never ever do that. I'll never do that. That worked really well on them. So I know that, you know, today or, you know, in the future, I can lean on that if and when I need to, because once again, like, clients, all you want to do is give your client a positive experience.
Yes.
And you can have their best interest at heart, and you can be doing what you think is going to work for them. But sometimes it just doesn't go to plan, and they'll have a reaction, and, you know, they'll disappear. And you know, you gave them the complimentary advice after you got them back for an LED, a calming mask, you fixed it, their skin still looks better, but they had a bad experience, and, you know, they're now sitting in front of someone else for their initial consult. So we're trying to minimize that as a clinic more and more all the time, trying to just and it's often out of your hands, but by listening to all the things that haven't worked historically, I feel like that's a real benefit to us as a clinic when they're coming to you for the first time. And the other sorts of questions is, and I spoke about this with Nancy the other day, I ask them questions because we're a dermal therapies clinic. We are using invasive techniques to change the skin. We're not a we're not a relaxing style clinic. We're still trying to make the experience as luxe as possible, but we are, at the end of the day, we're trying to really alter the physical nature of the skin. So we're using modalities that do that. So we need to let a client know that that's what we do here. We need to tell them that there is downtime, that there will be disruptions to the skin for short or long periods of time, and to ask them if they're okay with that. If a client says to you, absolutely not, you know, I work 9 to 5, I go out weekend, if they say, I don't want any downtime, we can still help a client with that, but we'll tell them that results will take longer to come through. We'll talk about what results they actually want to see. We'll tell them that we'll tell them, okay, like limited or no downtime, we can do A, B, and C, but your D&E, until you're able to clear your schedule and undertake some, we won't be able to do that. And I feel like that's really important from the get-go to avoid a client have experience down the track. And then the question I like to ask them is what sort of client they intend to be. And quite often a client will not.
It's on my list questions. I loved that question.
And won't know the answer, but
go James. I love that question. You explained this when you were with Nancy, and I just absolutely loved it, and I wrote that down. What type of client do you want to be?
And I look, if this works in our environment, because once again, we're trying to limit people not returning to the clinic. So we're trying to think of reasons why a client might not come, and that could be financial, it could be time, it could be it was too invasive, and there can be other reasons. But when look, you might not have given any consideration to this, but I'm wondering if you know at this stage what sort of client you want to be, because a client quite often is sitting there thinking, I'm going to budget $500 a month for this, or I really only have about enough time to visit the clinic once a quarter, once a year, or they might not have any idea. And so I'm not trying to pigeonhole anyone, but if a client and I can get on the same page as quickly as possible, the best things for our future relationship. So if a client, I only want to come once a quarter, and I know that, I can write them a treatment plan that will give their quarterly visits as much of an impact as possible. And I can explain to them, I've given you a treatment at a higher price point, but you're only coming once a quarter. That means that only every 3 months I get to put my hands on your face, but I'm going to make it as impactful as possible. I've linked these treatments together so I can target A, B, C, and D. Once again, they get to go home and think about all of this, but I explain to them why this quarterly visit is going to be impactful, also why it's appropriate. Sometimes if a client's saying they want to be quarterly and I'm looking at their face and they want me to work on their pigment congestion and perioral rosacea, perioral dermatitis, they can't have it's not in their best interest for me to advocate for a quarterly visit, but I'll explain them. I'll say, look, you would like me to work on A, B, C, and D. I can't, from a quarterly perspective, be impactful enough for you. But what I think I can do is, if you come to me fortnightly or 8 weeks at a low price point, quick 15-minute visit, I'm going to do everything I can to get your skin to a point where you can come quarterly to me. But keep in mind that I'm probably only going to be able to affect change A and B, and look, you know, it's kind of a bit confusing with the letters, but what I'm trying to get across is,
it's not.
If their intention, if what sort of client they want to be is aligned with what their skin needs, but quite often it isn't all about education. Just because a client thinks that it's what they want, it doesn't mean that's in their best interest. But you explain to them why. And you explain it to them in a very honest, genuine manner. And what you want is not what you should have at this point because, and then they're like, okay, I get it. Sorry, no, I did think that all I wanted today was a cleanser and a moisturizer, but you've explained to me that that's really only going to cleanse my face and moisturize my face, and that the bulk of work is going to be done by these serums that you've recommended. Then they're like, okay, I get it. People don't know.
Yes.
Don't know what they don't know. That's a big
Exactly.
line. I don't know if you know who she is. It's a good one.
I haven't seen that, but what was it? Sorry.
Oh, I said the line that Bridget Ben says, a coach, you know, when people don't know what they don't know. So our job is to explain all those things to them. Yeah,
absolutely. And to me, it's that part of the consultation where it's finding out exactly what it is they want to achieve, and then giving them that knowledge and your expertise so that they can start to understand more about whether it be their skin, their hair, their back, and then managing expectations. You know, people will come in with perhaps the expectation, like you say, that, well, I'll just come in once a quarter, or that, you know, but actually understanding that that's only going to give you a certain amount of results. And if you're serious, then ideally this is where you'll need to come and how often you'll need to come. And then it's down to them. Once they have that information and that knowledge, it gives them the ability to make the choice.
Correct.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing I'm sure you mentioned was that, go on.
No.
I think we've got a couple of little delays going on with our broadcast there, but I'm sure when we watch the rerun, it will be perfect.
You know, they don't get away. You know, quite often they do hold their cards a little bit to their chest, or they are going to wait for you to prove yourself before they commit. Client example, totally visit client because they get affected, they want more, and the only way to get that is by coming regularly. But they maybe didn't know what was possible to begin with, and yeah, you're exceeding their expectations, and they want more.
Absolutely. Now, the other question I was going to ask was that you mentioned when you were talking with, I think I may have lost James. Maybe he will be back in a moment. I was going to ask him a quick question where when he was speaking with Nancy, it was a fabulous interview, and I'll share the link with you so you can catch up and see that one as well. But he explained how he's quite happy to work with other product lines. If someone comes in and they are using something and they perhaps want to start a more serious skincare plan, but they're not quite sure as to, let's have a look. He may be coming back in with us. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, what he explained that, you know, if someone is looking for a program, but they are using something already, that he will ask them to bring what they're using in, and then he can see if that product line, that home care, will actually work with their skincare program, so that they can take their time in building up to a full range. Which again, I love that whole, you know, giving the client that freedom that it's okay. You know, let's look at everything in a non-judgmental, supporting the client and giving the client what it is that they want, by getting them to have that experience where the expert tells them what it is that was going to give them the most benefit. And I see it, whether it be hair, beauty, massage, it is the consultation that opens the door, builds the relationship, and allows the person to build that trust. Now, James is coming in back again. Let's see if we can pull him in. Oh, technology is wonderful when it works well, and he's back in the room.
Sorry.
Oh, don't worry. Listen, we're on the other side of the world to each other. And, you know, it's amazing how we can do these things now. I mean, I remember going way back in time where, you know, we still had just bits of paper at reception desk and you had to write everything down. And, you know, it was wonderful when, you know, answer machines were invented. But to have the sort of technology that we have nowadays is amazing. And he's dropped back out again. I'm going to start to wrap up, I think, and I'll see if need be, we can invite James back if you found him interesting and useful. And I'm going to throw back onto the screen just a final time. I love this. I absolutely love this. I love that whole, once we've got the full story, we'll create the treatment and home care plan tailored to your needs. And I just love the fact that it gives people that opportunity to go away if they need to and have a think about how they're going to care for their skin. Hey, should we try one more time? if you drop out this
Let's
time,
try.
I'll wrap it up, and it's been brilliant having you here anyway. The whilst you were away and probably sitting there trying to press buttons and think, I was explaining about one of the things you did with Nancy's. You explained a bit about how if someone is using something already at home, how you are happy to have a discussion with the client or to look at what it is they're using and to offer them sort of support and advice. Could you tell us a bit more about how that works when you're with clients?
Sure. So when a client books in for their appointment, they get a confirmation email that outlines anything that we would like them to, any sort of preparation that they might like to make before the appointment. One is to bring in any skincare that they're either using regularly, or they can bring everything in. That's fine, because that gives us a good understanding of how serious they are with their skincare, the sorts of skincare they're used to, be it like a cosmetic or a cosmeceutical. And also gives us an understanding too of the level of skincare that they're buying. So if it's really high end, for example, and it's going to be appropriate for their skin, well, their clients spent good money on it. So as long as it's not inappropriate, as long as it's going to in tandem with the rest of the skincare that they're using, we're going to say to them, yes, you can use this up, and then we have an alternative for you if you like to move on to our version. But if it's appropriate, then it's absolutely fine for them. Client really, really appreciates that. Client know that because they say so. But conversely, if a client is using skincare that is inappropriate for their skin, and it's not in their best interest, and it's going to inhibit progress that we're trying to make moving forward, I'm also very with discussion with them about why that's not appropriate. And there'll be a reason, and once you explain that to a client, they're generally like, okay, I won't use that, I'll give it to my mum, or I'll use it on my feet. But the buy-in for after an initial consult can often be quite expensive, and that's obviously relevant. It's different to everybody. So if you can save one a month and they still get to use skincare that's appropriate for them, it's a win.
And I absolutely love that. I just the idea of, again, that information lands in their email box, explains what's going to happen, and gives them, again, that freedom that, bring in. I mean, I don't know about you, but I certainly can think of clients who have, they've tried everything, they've bought everything, and they've got all of these different pots and creams and gels, and they don't know really, is it the right thing I should be using? Can I carry on using it? And I just loved the fact that trust and relationship, and knowing that, it is a journey. So if they use up a particular cream or a serum that is going to work in conjunction with what you're doing, and then once it is done, then, you're not just there trying to sell them stuff. It is about working with the client. And I absolutely loved that. I'm going to ask one final question, and then I'll let you relax for your evening. And I wanted to find out, sort of, from the clients coming back and referrals, because I believe that when you get the consultation right, and it allows you to design the service that gets people results, it allows a salon to really stand out in their community as the place to go and the person to go and speak to. Do you find that you have to do lots of marketing, or am I right in thinking that you get a lot of referrals?
We do. We're like 80% referrals, which is an incredible gift. And also the fact that, as I said before, we being a really, really small clinic, we get to place a huge amount of emphasis on every client visit and experience. Means that when one client has a great experience and has a result, it's not only written all over their face, but they're very, very happy to share that with a friend. And we try to break that a little bit more. When a client comes to an initial consult with us, they have a a folder, and within the folder is their treatment plan, their home care plan. There's a letter from me that they've read as for either myself or one of the therapists. Welcomes them to the clinic. It reassures them that they've found the one, and that we do everything that we can to be the last stop in their skincare journey. I tell them that we rely heavily on their feedback after they leave, because as dermal therapists, we might slap a peel on or do some laser, or a combination of them both. And the reaction doesn't take place for 24, 48, even later. So we rely heavily on the feedback to know that we've done the right thing, and that they're at home caring for their skin treatment in the way that they should. And the other is just some information about how in between visits, it's really important that clients stay in touch with us, because so much happens between visits, the travel, illness, they run out of skincare, they've overused skincare. So we're just really trying to focus on the communication that we have at the clinic is really important, but the communication that happens post is even more important. And again, you know, as we talked about, it's trying to reduce the opportunities for a client to feel that something's not right, and then to start to look elsewhere when it feels like something's not right, to really touch and talk to us, because it can be a simple, making a small tweak, getting them back for a compliment, and then, you know, setting everything straight from there. So also within the welcome pack is a letter, is nutritional information specific to their skin type that we'll go and grab after we've spoken to them, because we are dermal therapists. We are not naturopaths, not dietitians, but we do really appreciate the link between in health and the skin, and that also in my client, should they wish to delve deep into the nutritional or holistic side of the body, to go and see one of our a naturopath or allied health practitioner. And the other thing they get in the welcome pack, and this is a little bit long-winded answer, is they get 2 referral cards, and we write on it says, so let's say Jack has come for a facial. It says Jack loves their experience at James Vivian and wants off Natalie the opportunity to feel that gives their friend $50 off their first visit, and if Natalie deems that, then Jack will get $50. And that's all. We use shortcuts, and all of that that information is easily tracked and accessed through shortcuts. And because I don't think you can place a value on a new client, so to give that $50 off from both parts potentially is the beginning of a really long-standing relationship with the client. And it's interesting, we don't get a lot of those physical values, because they're A5 cards, they're presented usually on thick stock. We don't get back. A lot of people mention those cards, so we keep printing them for the moment. But we're seeing with our referrals, so we're constantly, you know, that the clients keep us on our toes, so that we can continue to be referred.
Absolutely. And I mean, to have that sort of level of referrals really is a key sign of what a fantastic job that you are doing with clients, because for a lot of salons, the client will be lost before they get to the 6th visit. And it's something like 70% of new clients are lost. And part of that issue is that lack of communication once they've left the salon, and not realizing that the client journey is not just from when they open that door and when they close it behind them. It's that follow-up work and that support, and ensuring that they've got the results they've want, and being willing to listen to feedback when something hasn't gone quite as the client expected, so that you keep that relationship long-term, because that's when people go, oh my God, you should pop in and see them. They're amazing. And it isn't that clients are going to go around with this, beautiful piece of marketing material necessarily going, I'm going to give you this card. It's just that moment where someone will say, your skin looks amazing, your hair looks incredible, and it's just like, oh, you have to go there, they're amazing. And that's such a powerful form of marketing. James, if there was a top tip, one last nugget of gold that you would share with the group, is there anything you can think of? I'm putting you on the spot. that you would share if someone was new to the industry or still fine-tuning their skills to succeed with clients? What advice would you give?
Oh look, I think from my perspective, what I have done is to create an experience for the client, and that's touching on the treatment itself, but it's all that's around that as well. It's the environment that you're performing the treatments in. It's the little flourishes of furniture design, and it's all of the, they put me on the spot, but it's all the communication, and it's me doing it. I do everything as well as I possibly can, because I put myself in the position of the client, and so therefore I think if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for the client. So, and that's not a great answer, but
no, it's absolutely
and I'm saying it
perfect.
It's feedback. I'm saying it's the feedback that partners that say it's so much more than facial treatment. I love coming to the clinic because it's experience, and they feel really, really comfortable and relaxed, despite the fact that their face is burnt off.
And you know what? It's absolutely the perfect answer. It is all about the experience. It's how we make people feel, and it's all of the little, marketing, we'd call it touch points. You have your touch point, whether it's the email that's gone out or the social media post that's going. But in a client experience, it's exactly the same. It's those little touch points as they go through the experience that just leaves them with that, wow, this is the place I'm going to. And what I loved in the wording you used, I think you said it was in their folder, that sort of, we want to be your last stop in skincare. You have found your skin home, and that's what we aim to achieve. James, it has been fantastic speaking with you, and I have loved listening to how you work and how you've built that experience, and completely can understand why you've got such a strong referral of clients coming through the door, because it is about how we make people feel. And I'm going to end it off there. James, have a wonderful evening. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And to those of you who are watching, whether it be on a replay or in the other groups, thank you all very much. James, final farewell from you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. If you need any more chats, let me know, because it's my success and my initiatives with everyone else, because I am where I am because other people helped me. So it's my pleasure, really.
Absolutely. As Vanessa likes to say, I think if I remember the wording, I've forgotten. Don't you just hate it when that happens? About sharing our knowledge. The more you can reach, the more you can teach. And it's such an important thing in the industry that we are sharing our knowledge to help other people to develop their careers and to be successful. Thank you very much, James. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you soon. Take care.